And welcome once again to Living in the 21st Century. Joining me today is Dr. Tara Kfoury, Director for River Educational Consulting. Doc, it's good to have you on.
Thank you very much for having me back. It's great to be here.
Likewise. The last time we communicated, we always talk about mental health issues in children. But there's a rising climb on homicides, where kids now are killing their parents. And I don't know if to refer to it as mental health. I don't know if to refer to it as being angry. What causing this rise in the US for children to be just killing their parents? And it's happening very regular now. What you think is going on?
Well, it definitely is a good question, Errol, to address. And I think you are correct in the fact that it is occurring a little bit more frequently than we've ever seen before. And there's different causes that could be the explanation for that. But it is not something that is new. It's actually called parricide. If it's matricide, it would be maternal only. That would be the killing of a child or a young adult of a mother. Patricide is the killing or murder of a father, but parricide is the term that is clinically used at this point. That is either for both individuals or either one. So parricide has seen an increase. I think the unpublished numbers now are at least once a day that a parent is killed by their children, whether they are a teenager or under, defined as under 18, or whether they are a young adult in their early 20s or 30s. There are incidents where they're in their 50s and they murder an older parent at the time. But for the most part, what we're studying and what we're seeing an increase in is the young adults ranging from slightly before 18 years old to a little bit over 23 years old. And that is, there are several different reasons where we've been able to identify in the mental health format, as well as just, the combination of medical research from past and from current. And there are three regular reasons, what we call regular, meaning that they've existed since the 1970s, for the reasons why children are killing their parents. And one of it could be a defense, whether it's a defense from abuse of the dad to a son, or the dad is abusing the mother or a partner, and the child enacts, basically engages in taking the life of the parent in defense of either themselves or another loved one. That's a pretty common cause of a child killing a parent. The second is there is a psychiatric concern or a mental health disorder that is in effect, whether it is schizophrenia, bipolar, personality, different personalities that has evoked the desire to take the life of another person, which is seen in the Kara and Dave Bailey case, which was years ago, where both children said that their alternative personality came out as they murdered their mother. And then the third one is an antisocial personality disorder, where they don't really tend to follow the norm of society, and they're very easily angered. They are very contentious with a parent, and then they, in essence, kill because there's a purpose, which means that it's instrumental. For example, there was a case in Colorado not too long ago where a son wanted a new car and the mother couldn't afford a second car. And he murdered her in her sleep so that he could get her insurance money so that he could buy a new car and live on his desire to have a new car. So those are the three that were most common that you see. Again, they're, defense from abuse it's mental health or psychological health, and then the third one is for instrumental reasons, for sole purpose of a selfish reason. The newest one that we're seeing, or we're guessing that we're seeing, is coming out from the new research, is the results that actually come from COVID and having and even previous years before COVID, the last 10 to 15 years, the data is being collected. And that causes, the cause that is being identified at this point is actually children not having executive functioning skills and not having self-sustaining skills, which means executive functioning skills, their metacognition is not as strong as it used to be. Their thought process, their being able to solve problems on their own, their individuality and knowing who they are apart from their parents or their other siblings or even their friends group. The other, and then what that causes is a feeling of being weak or hopeless, inadequate, not being able to solve problems, not being able to identify who they are and then where they fit in life. So that actually ends up causing a strain on their own personal inside thought, and that causes them to basically shut down and not be able to answer questions or solve problems or figure out a solution for themselves when they get themselves in trouble. Everyday thought process, again, like metacognition, problem solving, initiation of tasks. They're so used to the parental unit coming in and solving their problems or starting the problem or helping them or leading them every single step of the way, which is on a typical daily basis is accepted, is encouraged as a parent. But the limitation of this population that will engage in parricide, instead they become so frozen by their inadequacies and their non-developed skills that they become angry, and that anger and hostility is geared towards the person they believe is the reason for that, and that would be a parent.
Well, I'm glad you touched that basis, because I was about to ask you, do you think the parents then is contributing to this, since they're actually doing everything for the child? And then you find that this child grows up with a child mentality, and when it reached the age of 20, 21, or 23, aspirations change in life, but getting there, it still needs a parent guiding hand rather than being an independent thinking person who can go out there and command things for themselves. These two entities within that person seems to be fighting, which contribute then to anger and result in killing a parent. So if that could be the case, do you think the dynamics in parenting should call into question as to how at certain points in the child's life they should step back and allow their children to do some things on their own? So
I would think, I would like to tell the world that this is a really heated discussion among mental health and especially pediatricians. So I'm going to present the most common side that I believe it has been expressed, and that is that there is a point in time in their adolescent development where they need to have individualistic skills that are developed, which allow them to problem solve, initiate, and produce work, report to a job on their own. If they forget something, it's not a parent job to go and hand them their forgotten stuff. There is a push among pediatrics and among pediatric neuropsychology that we have to allow them to problem solve and adjust and adapt and be more flexible. And that does mean pulling back from problem solving for your child. That is a growing thought process more and more, where I think and you have to back it up a little bit too, because when mothers in particular, if it is a heterosexual family or even a homosexual family that both parents are now working, unlike in past years where mom was responsible or partner was responsible for all the tasks and helping and making sure that everything at home got done, once both partners went to work, I guess the desire to just do it ourselves and get it done so that it's done and we can move on to the next task because we're so time managed, lent itself to enabling parents to do a lot more than what was originally done for their own children. And that stunts the adolescent growth. And that causes deficits in skills to form because they've never been tasked with completing those skills. Am I making sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah. One thing I'm asking, though, because I see in the middle of all of this that it's some macro distraction also of society that even though parents may be working within the sequence of doing things and letting go at certain stages, society becomes so, I don't want to use the word scientific, but it becomes so distracted with so many things that your child eyes are locked on to everything this world can possibly offer, making what mom and dad say to them in some cases probably don't make much sense. I don't know. I think we live in a very distracted world, and come with that distractions. With those distractions, also bring a dark cloud over the minds of young people, even adults. Everyone seems to be like rambling. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making much sense. Guide me through it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about rambling, I think our brains are so overprogrammed and we're so, again, it goes back to time management, very limited time. Mm-hmm. Your days are so scheduled. Kids' sports are scheduled. Kids' activities have to be, scheduled. You have to have time frames to get from one place to the other so that their children are on time to these things. It is very, very hard to focus on work, life, family life, individual self-care. We keep pushing self-care, but there's the common aspect that I hear about is, well, I don't have any time. I don't have any time to slow down. I don't have any time to take to myself to do self-care. And I think we've lost the ability to minor multitask. I think it was okay when you did two things at the same time, but I think what you're saying about rambling is there's so much going on through individuals' minds that there's what's called like 7 tabs open at the same time, and you're trying to function at 100% for each tab and remember everything at the same time. And that causes you to forget things or not be on time. So we're seeing a lot more tardiness. We're seeing a lot more flexibility with scheduling. We're also seeing a lot more forgetfulness, and task initiation is not being completed. We're seeing there's a lot more frustration and a lot more anxiety because now I'm behind on this. And those children who struggle with, for example, perfectionism, instead of learning to be okay with not having it perfect, they actually intensify, and that causes frustration, anger, and shutdown. Or shutdown. So an individual then can become even more frustrated because they just don't have. They're looking around, and at social media, for example, they're looking around at all these individuals who are successful, and they're at practice, and they're hitting home runs, and they're honor roll and their awards, especially this time of year in the United States where everybody's getting their National Honor Society awards, they're getting their college acceptances. So that causes a lot more frustration and anger. And that frustration doesn't just, it's also a lack of accountability in our individuals, our children. There's a discussion that previous generations have taught the children not to take individual responsibility for their... It's okay. I was wondering if you guys can hear the dogs barking in the background that are in my house.
It's okay.
It's a lack of accountability. It's a lack of responsibility. And I think all combined together that causes us to just get frustrated and forgetful and babble and not really get to a point. And even when I'm on your show, sometimes I have so much to say. I try to fit it into one sentence, but it feels like I'm rambling. And I
No, that's good. You come with good clarity.
I think it's just, I think we are overworked, we are overstressed, we have not enough time. There's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there's no other time. And our kids, for example, our young adults, our parents are so scheduled that parents are doing more for their children than they ever have, because they need to get it done so that they can move on to the next thing, and they're not late for something, and they're not missing a deadline, or they're not, that make sure that their children are doing what every other child is doing, instead of just accepting the child as they are and letting them do whatever they want, and teaching the child that, well, if you forgot something or you're not on time, you're going to be late, and these are the consequences that you have to face, not anybody else.
Absolutely. And this is one of the things that you always look at. The child's internal environment within its household, there's so much a mom or dad may be expecting of that child. You go to school, you learn well, and especially in some cultures, singing don't do this for you, this don't do this for you, stay in the books and do this and do that, which happens within the Black culture a lot. Stick to the books. But then, outside of your internal environment, when you go into the wider environment, there are issues. You got peer pressure out there, performing well in whether it's in sports or some other activities, but you're getting problems with mommy or daddy telling you do this and do that, while others of different cultures get to enjoy the benefits of some other activities you can't. So mommy want you to do this, daddy want you to do this, but you yourself can't make a choice in what you really want to do. And I found that was a problem in many young people's life, from parents. I want you to become a doctor, or I want you to become a this or that, or some other thing that they want. They're not studying what the child wants, or they want the child to carry on something that their great-great-grandmother had been doing, penetrating down through other generations. And this kind of pressure, both at home and in its macro environment, I think builds rage. Builds rage within the child, and he or she becomes a ticking time bomb. And they're not going to take it out, well, let me refrain from saying that, because sometimes they goes into the schools and start getting those students, or they kill mommy and daddy, and this occur now on a regular basis. Do you believe that there should be some national exposure to parenting, that parents should look really at what the child needs and help them to work towards their needs, opposed to be accomplishing what the parent think is best for the child? I don't know.
Well, I think there's a compromise in there at some point too. I don't, I think there's compromises as far as every parent wants their child to do the best they possibly can. They want them to be most successful. And I think the conversation has to happen when they're teenagers about why their family, and even maybe preteen, why their family is pushing them in a direction that they're pushing them. And there's a lot to say for those families that really are pushing their children to become doctors, lawyers, and other pharmaceutical reps and that nature. And the reason is because living in the United States is very expensive. It's very hard. And the families know that. And they know, especially from other cultures who have come from other countries and they're in the United States now, they've recognized how hard that they have to work in order to make a living. And I don't think young individuals really recognize that yet, because they just can't. Their brain is just not functioned like that, right? But I think the conversation and the demonstration of why the family is pushing that individual child to be who they are and to do what they have to do to get to where they could possibly be, or what the family would like them to be, should be a continual thing, because I think children need to understand why they are doing what they are doing and why they are studying what they are studying, and then what the outcome really would look like. Because right now we just tell them, this is what you're doing, this is what you're studying, this is what you have to enter, do this work and study really hard. You have to miss out on this, but do this. And you're right, that does build anger, frustration, resentment, because they don't know the long-term goal. They just see the short-term practice. They're not seeing the long-term payoff, right? And children are not built that way. Children are more immediate, spontaneous. They see what's right in front of them. They literally take it day by day. So we have to be able to have that conversation as parents. So there should be that conversation, in every family about what it is that you expect. What is it that we can do as parents to help you get there? What is it that you need as far as supports? What is it that you think you would like to do? And then how will you long term be able to support yourself and possibly anybody else that occurs in your life, right? And think about it logically. We're not allowing our children to think, our young, youth and teenagers and young adults that go off to college, we're not allowing them to think like that. We just let them continue, even at 21 years old, to take it day by day without really looking forward and saying, what is this going to look like? What trajectory of my life is this? And how is this studying or work or activities or sports? How is this going to help me long term in my life? And so that's the kind of conversations that parents need to remember, to have with their individuals, especially when it comes sophomore, junior year of high school. And if you're talking about colleges with your children, talk about why they need to choose a certain college, not just because they like the campus or they like the particular studies, but pick 4 or 5 careers that you would like to do and try to find a college that actually has all of that, which is honestly, I know that's very difficult working with juniors and seniors. Like I do know that is very difficult, but if you're studying business and you're studying sports, you could put that together as sports medicine, or you could put that, put that together for a business, or you could put that together for train. However you can figure it out. That's how we have to help our young people think, right? And then to understand that presenting at a science fair when they're a sophomore will help them in their trajectory if they're presenting about something on sports medicine and they want to apply to a college for sports medicine. So everything has to be almost like laid out for this generation, the younger generations. And that's the kind of conversation that parents need to have. And they also need to have the conversation about how our colleges going to be paid for, because a lot of kids get to be a junior or senior year and parents don't have the conversations with them that they can't afford their colleges. And that turns to anger, which turns to aggression, and that gets frustration, by their children. And then, it causes strain in a relationship. That I'm not saying the extreme was that they get murdered by their own children, but it is a conversation that should be had early on.
Absolutely.
And so, sorry.
What do you think there should be some of the warning signs a parent should look for in case a child decides to turn in the other direction to do harm? Is there any signals a parent should be looking for? Or
I would probably recommend for men, for example, those that commit parasite are usually immature. They're beyond immature, what their age group would be. They're passive at times, very quiet, very withdrawn, don't really say anything, or if they say much, it's more than the regular teenage sarcasm. And then it also, depression, look for anger. And then also too, sometimes you have to be an old school parent and snoop, and to see if they have anything written in notebooks, see if they have anything written in notes that are concerning. And always contact, if you feel that there's a sign that your child is not doing well, reach out to the school counselor, reach out to the guidance counselor, the school adjustment counselor. If they have a therapist, reach out to the therapist and just ask them, is there any warning signs that any of those adult individuals see? An English teacher would be able to tell you if they do a piece of writing that they're presenting their personal opinions on, that would be also the same, that they would express their opinions, and that might be concerning. Also, too, a lot of the parents that were murdered by their children over the years, they are strong, domineering, demanding, possessive of their time. It doesn't matter if they're separated, divorced, or if they're a nuclear family. But there are warning signs of aggression, signs if there's harm to other children in the house, if they're overly aggressive towards a child, if they're out, staying out all night, not following rules, getting suspended. These are concerning ones, but those are more of like in your face ones. The ones that you have to look at is, are they secretly, do they have addictions in the background? Are they using drugs? Are they using alcohol? Are they expressing self-harm in any way? Do they have suicidal thoughts at the same time? And what is your relationship like? If you have a very contentious relationship with your family, your child, as a family, you need to have therapy. You need to go together to therapy. And if that's contentious and it just keeps getting worse, that's a warning sign right there. But I do have to say, on the offset, a lot of the parents that were murdered in the last 10 years by their children, they had these signs, but there wasn't anything that was so blatant that they would have been concerned. They follow, it's continuously said, it's under the guise of normal teenage angst.
Let's see. Well, we're coming down to the last minute and 15 seconds. So would you say to these young people, if you're having a problem, despite of how serious it may seem, talk it to your mom, talk it to your teacher, just don't keep it within?
Don't keep it inside. People are there to help you. And if you feel off, as what the kids say, then reach out for help. There are always people in the building, in the school building, and in the community that can help you.
Great. Well, Dr. Kfoury, it was a pleasure having you on today. Definitely we communicate on a more regular basis. For all those who have been tuning in, I want to say have a blessed day. Thank you.